Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something that is absolutely everywhere right now. A massive shift that's got the whole creative world talking, the collision of artificial intelligence and human creativity. Just think about it for a second. We're living in a time where, in literally mere seconds, an AI can generate stunningly detailed art in the exact style of Studio Ghibli, it can spit out an entire formatted screenplay, or even synthesize a brand new, unheard track using the legendary voice of Mohad Rafi. It is a staggering technological leap, right? But looking at this kind of raw power, it forces us to ask some really uncomfortable questions about where human artists actually fit into the future.
So when you see what this tech can pull off, that immediate sense of panic, it's completely understandable. You're probably wondering, is this the end of the artist? I mean, if a machine can write, paint, and compose music instantly, is there literally any room left for us for human creativity? It's a terrifying thought. But before we go ahead and declare the total death of art, our source material suggests we might need to take a massive step back and completely rethink what a word like originality actually means in the first place.
To really get this, we've got to rewind and look at some pretty profound philosophical insights. The philosopher Jiddu Krishnamurti frequently pointed out that human brains are deeply, fundamentally conditioned right from childhood. So our thoughts, they aren't entirely our own. And building on that exact sentiment, the legendary American writer Mark Twain put it incredibly bluntly. He said, "There is no such thing as a new idea." According to this view, human innovations are almost always just permutations and combinations of older, pre-existing concepts. And Twain had this brilliant analogy for it, the mental kaleidoscope. Think of an actual physical kaleidoscope, you know? You have a set number of colorful little beads inside, but every single time you shake it, you get a completely new, curious, and beautiful pattern. Twain argued that human inspiration is exactly like that. We are constantly absorbing old ideas from the world around us, shaking them up in our minds, and then presenting them in fresh combinations. We're basically just rearranging past inputs to create something that feels new.
Now, let's actually compare human education to machine learning for a second. Think about what happens when humans go to fine arts or film school. What do? They study the greats. They read Kafka. They obsessively analyze Van Gogh's brushstrokes. They break down Martin Scorsese's camera angles frame by frame. They absorb all this data. Fundamentally, that is the exact same process as training an AI. To train an AI model, developers feed it vast amounts of text, images, and video. The AI analyzes those patterns, recognizes the distinct styles, and learns to replicate them, literally just like an art student studying under a master.
So this brings up a huge double standard in how we judge art, doesn't it? When a human filmmaker watches a masterpiece and then uses its specific look and feel for their own project, they proudly call it a subconscious influence or a deep inspiration. But when an AI uses the exact same pattern recognition process to generate a painting in a fraction of a second, a lot of people instantly dismiss it as mere imitation or even call it an insult to art. Which is kind of funny, because it brings us to a fascinating reality about how commercial human artists have actually been operating for decades.
Just look at the commercial film industry. Take some of these surprising examples from Bollywood. Lal Singh Chadra is an official remake of Forrest Gump. Jo Jita, Wahi Sikandar directly mirrors Breaking Away. Atang Ki Atang heavily copies The Godfather. Gajini lifted its core concept from Memento, and Doom 3 basically mashed up elements of The Prestige and The Dark Knight. And hey, it's definitely not just movies. Countless hit songs have been lifted straight from global sources. The truth is, human artists have been engaging in direct mechanical copying for a really long time.
But here is the harsh reality that our sources lay out. Human copycats have now officially become the inferior version of AI. Think about it. If the game is simply about capturing past data, watching old movies, listening to old songs, and remixing them, a human brain can only hold a tiny fraction of what an AI can. Plus, humans just cannot match the sheer processing speed. An AI can analyze thousands of scripts and output a fully formed derivative work in seconds. Human imitators simply cannot compete on that playing field anymore. It's game over for them.
Which really brings us to the root of the problem. As the source material argues, the big bad villain here isn't actually AI. It's the rise of factory films. In both Hollywood and Bollywood, the industry has become incredibly formulaic. Production houses are often run by MBA grads now rather than creatives, and they want guaranteed returns. So what do? They standardize story templates. They recycle the exact same camera angles for every hero entry or ambulance scene, and they just flood the market with sequels and remakes. Honestly, they operate a lot like a McDonald's floor manager standardizing a burger recipe.
And you know what? AI is insanely good at executing these fast food formulas. For example, when the creator of our source material prompted ChatGPT to write 10 original masala-style one-liners for a typical Salman Khan action movie, it spat out lines like, "Make mistakes in life, but only once in front of me," and "I won't shoot you with bullets, but with emotions." Come on, those are arguably just as catchy, if not more so, than the dialogue actually being written by human writers in factory films right now. It completely proves AI's absolute proficiency in executing standardized formulas. Now, because of that proficiency, the fears of film editors, animators, and background extras are very, very real. But historically speaking, technology replacing mechanical labor is just a continuum. The 19th century, machines replaced handloom weavers. Early 20th century, the camera completely disrupted sketch artists. In the late 20th century, computers replaced thousands of accountants. And today, AI is poised to replace the highly mechanical, repetitive jobs in these film factories. This timeline shows us that whenever a task can be standardized, technology eventually, inevitably, takes it over.
But right here is where the narrative drastically pivots. The source material emphasizes that we are fundamentally misunderstanding the current landscape. This isn't actually a battle of humans versus AI. Actually, scratch that whole narrative. The real struggle highlighted here is between large, greedy corporations focused on efficiency and independent, individual artists. The dynamic is shifting entirely from man against machine to corporate monopoly versus independent expression. And in that specific struggle, humans have an ultimate superpower that keeps them in the game, and it's personal experience. Sure, AI can scrape the entire internet, it can process billions of data points, but it cannot live a singular reality. It cannot feel heartbreak, it cannot physically immerse itself in a tense political climate, and it absolutely cannot experience real empathy. It only processes data, whereas human beings process life.
That lived reality is exactly what makes certain artists completely irreplaceable. Our sources highlight visionary directors like Anurag Kashyap and Dibakar Banerjee. Kashyap's films, for instance, are deeply, intensely personal. They explore his own vulnerabilities, his raw reactions to sociopolitical realities, and his own personal darkness. His work is driven by profound empathy and a totally distinct worldview. He experiments, he takes massive risks, and he even embraces failure. You simply cannot prompt an AI to generate a film rooted in the authentic, lived trauma and empathy of a human being. It doesn't work.
Which brings us perfectly to some brilliant advice from independent filmmaker Jim Jarmusch. He totally agrees that we are always taking from what surrounds us. Remember the mental kaleidoscope? But his crucial advice is to, quote, steal only those elements that speak directly to your soul. Taking inspiration from clouds, architecture, older movies, or just random conversations you overhear is beautiful, as long as it filters through your authentic, lived experience. That unique filter is the one thing that guarantees your art will be completely your own.
And this builds into a really empowering resolution. Depending on who is using it, AI takes on an entirely different role. Big corporations whose only goal is to maximize profit, for sure, they're going to use AI to cut jobs and churn out standardized formulas. But individual artists aiming to maximize their creativity can use AI as a profound game-changing tool. Solo creators can now use AI to generate illustrations for children's book, completely bypass massive animation budgets, and just self-publish their ideas. For the solo creator, AI literally levels the playing field against those very same massive corporations.
So, we arrive at our final thought. Ultimately, AI is essentially just a tool, much like a camera or a drawing tablet. The challenge presented by our sources is crystal clear. We need to stop trying to protect repetitive, factory-style jobs that are bound to be automated anyway. Instead, the real question is, will you let AI replace your mechanical tasks, or will you use this incredible new tool to bypass the gatekeepers and unleash your authentic, enterprising self? The future definitely belongs to the irreplaceable artist. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep creating.